Hi, Sandra Wilson here, clinical hypnotherapist. Now I thought we could have a little chat today about one of the most frustrating symptoms of having ADHD related rejection sensitivity is the inability to take criticism or feedback, even if it's well-meaning, and it almost feels like a bit of a fear of being criticised in so many people. And of course it can cause havoc in the workplace, especially when it comes round to having your annual performance appraisals. So many people with rejection sensitivity will fall into one of two traps. So the first is they will reject feedback completely and just see it as being a personal attack on them, and it just feels safer to protect the ego in that scenario. And the second trap is accepting all feedback without question, even if it isn't useful. And of course that can sort of relate a little bit to people pleasing. So if you're hypersensitive to rejection, your ego might step in to protect you and really not want to hear any criticism, even constructive criticism, or you take it far too seriously and you don't really have a strong boundary. So if you're very defensive, you might shut down opportunities to grow. So let's imagine, you're at work and your manager, your supervisor gives you some constructive feedback that's intended to be helpful and intended to help you improve, but you've already got a bit of an idea that they're criticising you, and as far as you're concerned, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing and you're happy with it. So you're shutting down the opportunity to improve. And maybe if you were going to be really honest with yourself, perhaps there is room for improvement. And unfortunately, what tends to happen then is you might notice that your colleagues who are willing to take this constructive criticism on board, then they do make improvements, and they are the ones that get rewarded and move forward, and you get left behind. But blindly accepting feedback isn't always the answer either. If you can imagine, say, I don't know, you've set up a business and then a family member comes along and tells you what they think you should do, even though they have zero experience. And it's just an opinion. And you think, oh my God, yeah, they're right. Or maybe I ought to do it the way they see it, even though they've got no experience. So of course, you cannot possibly run a business based on the opinions of people who have never, ever, ever had any experience running a business before. Okay, so that would be complete chaos. So the truth is that feedback isn't all created equal. Constructive feedback focuses on helping you to improve. And destructive criticism, indeed it does attack you, because you can't always tell what motivations people have, even in the workplace, where you would assume that your manager is going to do their best to be constructive. And any well-meaning advice from the wrong source can be just as damaging. So what's the move? Be open, but be selective. If you can consider the source, and does this align with your goals? Extract what you think might be helpful and throw out the rest. So the skill isn't in necessarily rejecting or accepting the criticism. It's about filtering and using your wisdom to be able to tell the difference between what's right, what feels appropriate, and what you can just safely ignore. And of course, it does make it quite difficult if you know that you're sensitive to being criticised, sensitive to, rejection. How can you tell? And I guess just spending a little bit of time really thinking about how the person would have intended that criticism, and whether or not, if you were going to be truly honest with yourself, is it helpful? And I know I've had to do quite a lot of that in my own business, and it does take a little bit of skill. And I hope that's helped. I'll be back with more content tomorrow. Bye for now.